We are training our kids to be killers.
Violent games can cause kids to act more aggressively and accept violence as a part of everyday life.
Certain forms of video game violence can be correlated to aggression in the kids who use it.
My daughter seems to enjoy horror movies, and I don't really particularly care for them myself, but you know, everybody has their own little niche, and I think that as long as you can keep reality in check and understand that it's just a movie, things are probably okay. I guess my biggest fear would be somebody that's 7, 8, 9, 10 that's engaging in these movies and watching these movies and what type of development's happening inside their mind. And again, a normal individual that has no mental health issues, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, should be able to understand the difference between fiction and reality. However, if someone was struggling with some type of mental illness, it could, in my view, interfere with the proper reality of that child. However, I'm no expert in the field, but I would think that constantly seeing that sort of thing may open up their vision to something, or their perception to something else. Grand Theft Auto, that type of, that's a fairly violent show or video. When I'm watching that sort of thing, and the police are chasing this guy, and it almost, in a way to me, was that if you're dealing with young kids, is that do they understand what death is, and do they understand if they made a decision like that they're going to be in a whole lot of trouble, it's going to ruin their lives. Do they understand that once you die, you don't come back? And some of these games depict that. They show that. Call of Duty, how many times you actually get killed. And kids, so in their reality, do they start to not understand that death is death? But I would say some of those video games are extremely violent. Some of the horror shows that I've seen my daughter watch are extremely violent.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
And I'm saying, man, hopefully they understand that this is just a TV show. And I think that's what, in defense of the industry, video games, TV, movie, that sort of thing, they feel that most people are able to understand the difference between reality and fiction.
I think violence in the media can affect young people from time to time. It would depend on, I think, the personality. It would depend on how parents interact with their children about the violence that they're seeing in the media. I think those factors play a big role.
What form of media do you think is most violent? Movies, TV, video games?
Well, I mean, there's certainly lots of violence in movies.
I think video games would be the most violent, but I think it's almost a satirical violence. Some people take it a little too seriously.
Kung Lao wins.
You realize that a show like Sons of Anarchy is an extreme exaggeration of violence, and anyone with clear frame of mind when they're watching it knows that it's kind of pulp, it's entertainment, it's blown out of proportion for entertainment's sake. But that said, there's people out there that can't differentiate that. So
it's okay to go into a movie and enjoy the violence.
Yeah, well, it's a movie. It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy. It's not real life. It's a fantasy. You go and you watch, you watch a kung fu movie, and one guy takes on 100 people in a restaurant. That's fun.
Have you ever dealt with a young person that was obviously directly affected by media violence, or someone that has actually like blamed their violent actions on a game or a movie or something?
Not students, for sure. I don't think I've ever had a student who has done those things, like blame the media for their actions, although I'm sure it might happen. But I've seen in my smaller children that if they tend to watch shows that maybe have a bit more violence, and not even anything crazy, like maybe it's just the Bugs Bunny Tweety show, that maybe they would be a bit affected by that. But again, that we can, that kind of opens the door for that conversation about what's appropriate and what's not, and what's real and what's not. So.
Do you think in a way that like violent video games and things help people like cope, like as an outlet for stress, or?
I think any hobbies is an escape. So whether it's books or movies or sports, video games, it's a way to decompress.
I definitely think that there is an outlet for stress in violence, but I guess not so much violence as being physically aggressive. So what I mean by that, and from personal experience in Taekwondo, is Taekwondo, you're kicking a person, or you're kicking a shield, you're kicking something, which I guess could be perceived as violent behavior, except it's in an organized manner in a sport. And certainly, I personally get stress relief from that type of activity. So I can see it being, now, but again, it's not violence in a negative way, like it's not intentional to hurt somebody so much as it, but it does get aggression out, for sure, and it does relieve stress.
When I was a kid, we played Smurf Hunt.
Smurf Hunt?
I had an Amiga 500 computer, which I'm sure you'd have to look up, and there was a game in which you killed Smurfs with a shotgun.
So?
I've yet to kill anyone. So. It was a ridiculous game.
If you saw a Smurf, would you shoot it?
No.
Right.
If you saw a Smurf and you had a shotgun?
It's in your hands.
Loaded.
It's loaded.
I would not shoot a Smurf.
You would not shoot a Smurf?
No.
Blaming violence in movies and videos on
insane. That's insane.
No, really? It's not what is it called? Art of War, Man of War? What are the kids playing?
Call of Duty.
We don't allow that in our house. Really? So busy buying Call of Duty. There needs to be more hugs in households.
Those aren't mutually exclusive.
Well,
nothing in Call of Duty says you can't hug your family.
Well, you know what?
Nothing
This boy's favorite game pen was Call of Duty.
Yes, and many peaceful people. You're doing the same thing. Call of Duty is the most popular game there is. Everyone's playing it, so of course bad people are going to play it too.
Yeah.
To try to blame Shakespeare and the violence in Shakespeare and the violence in art for violence that happens in the real world is something that's been tried for years and is always wrong. People must take responsibility. We must stop blaming society and actually blame the perpetrator.
Yeah, you know what?
Call of Duty is something that young people like and enjoy, and it's a game.
I think
and most of those people aren't violent. Most of the people aren't violent.
We need to take responsibility for our own houses.
And we have to stop disliking our children. We attack comic books. We attack monster movies. Now we're attacking video games. Love our children and know that they can play.
Take care of your household.
Let them play.